Hi, I'm Michelle Sterling for Friends of Science Society. How are things in your neighborhood these days? Are they looking like they did for the past 20, 30, 50 years? Or are things starting to change with the new, more and better housing plans that are out there? Recently, the Missing Middle Initiative, as it calls itself, issued a report card on more and better housing. This was principally written by Dr. Mike Moffat, and it was commissioned by the Task Force for Housing and Climate and is released under the banner of More and Better Housing Canada, a nonprofit initiative designed to identify policy solutions for adding 5.8 million new homes by 2030. So that would be about 3,000 homes a day that we would have to be building. We're not doing that. And also that these homes have to be affordable, low carbon, and resilient. Now, when I worked in advertising years ago, we had something that we would tell clients right off the bat, that if they wanted a certain kind of production, they could have two of three things. You can have speed, price, or quality. So you can have two of those three things at the same time, but you can't have all three. So what do you think is going to happen in the housing market in Canada? I think we already know. I think we see it in many places. Dreadful things are happening, and this report really hammered Alberta as not being compliant with the blueprint on more and better housing. But you know what? The blueprint on more and better housing is from this NGO. It's not from the government. It's not the plan that the government put out. And furthermore, the blueprint on more and better housing actually listed climate 193 times, climate change 36 times, homeless 1 time. So you can tell where their priorities are. Their priorities are in climate, not in housing. And why is that? I mean, I think it's odd that a fellow named Peter Gilgan now claims that he can build 3,000 homes a year with his modular home project. And if you look at his track record, he's quite the climate activist. So why are all the climate activists now getting into housing? And what are they going to do to your community? Well, let's have a look and see what happens when you start putting modular housing in a nice little community that's been established for years. This is called the missing middle. A fourplex, that's what they advocate for. Just a fourplex, though. Except sometimes they advocate for an eightplex. And then in some cities, they don't mind if you actually make it even bigger. And while we're at it, it's modular after all, and there are lots of people who need housing. Let's make it even bigger. So look, we've got way more housing. I mean, it's kind of a shame that they're all just little tiny pods, but more housing. And then maybe you remember that elderly couple that took some of their retirement savings and they upgraded their house so that it would look better and sell at a higher rate so that they'd have more money for their retirement home. Well, having a monster like this in the neighborhood puts the price of this down, ironically. And of course, it's even worse when someone decides to build a condo tower beside it. Then what happens? Suddenly this house that has such beautiful character is meaningless. It even looks kind of ugly compared to the modern architecture of many of these condo towers. And don't ask about parking. Of course, the whole plan of these climate activists is to build you housing with no parking, because you should not have a car. You should only travel by public transit, even though it's very clear that in Canada, almost no one proportionately uses public transit. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have it. It's a very important thing for many people, but forcing people into this kind of accommodation and destroying their street and not providing any parking for the people who will live there isn't going to make people happy about traveling on transit. It's going to make them very frustrated because they have friends and family who also want to park when they come to visit them. And another problem that I don't think these academics ever thought about, and I saw it on X last week, behind these modular homes that have multiple units, all of a sudden there's a proliferation of garbage recycling and composting cans. In fact, behind one unit, I think there were something like 27 cans blocking actually the emergency exit from the yard. And rather than, say, doing a test pilot, taking one part of a city and seeing what happens to the continuity of the neighborhood, what happens to all the infrastructure underneath that has to be upgraded. Because if you used to have one house here with maybe 5 people living in it, now you've got, multiple units with maybe 100, maybe 200 people living in it. And they're all flushing the toilet, they're all wanting to surf the internet, they need to turn the lights off and on, they're using their induction stove. So all that subsurface infrastructure has to be upgraded to serve all the new people in the community. They're down on Alberta in this report. They're comparing it to the Blueprint report, which was also just a report by this NGO. It was not the official government report on housing. And, Alberta is actually allowing the free market to try and address these problems because entrepreneurs are much better at it than centralized government. If you don't want to end up living in a box, you better be responsive in your municipal communities, because what's happened is the federal government is basically bypassing the provincial government and going directly to municipalities and trying to get them on the climate bandwagon. Now there's a reason for that too. There's a thing called the C40 and C100 cities organizations. And they're real climate activists. These are cities who think that they can solve the alleged problem of climate change by making your life miserable. Yeah, it's the 15-minute city concept. I've gone on about that in a few other videos. But the point is, there's no climate emergency, and using climate as a pretext for building housing is ludicrous when so many people are in need. And the cost of a climate resilient home is far greater than the cost of a regular home. We should let individuals take the initiative. We should let entrepreneurs and business people take the initiative and not let these ENGOs try and run our lives and tell us how to live, where to live, and what kind of box to live in. For Friends of Science Society, I'm Michelle Sterling.